So Fox News is getting sued again. This time Dominion is suing them for $1.6 billion. They also got sued by Smartmatic for $2.7 billion. That was a collection of people, including Sidney Powell, who we're going to come back to a little bit later, and Rudy Giuliani. So Trump is going to go back onto Fox News and talk about the election. And you're going to see the panic that ensues with Laura Ingraham in a minute. But first, let me just tell you a little bit about the lawsuit, because this is fun. They explained why they're suing, and they said, this is from the lawsuit: Fox News gave airtime to false claims that Dominion had changed votes through algorithms in voting machines and had supposedly been created in Venezuela to rig elections for the late dictator, Hugo Chavez. Now look, they put that on air. They put that on air. Hugo Chavez has been dead for 7 years. Okay, so if you have that outrageous a lie and you're that big a news station, you're gonna get sued. Okay, Adrienne's a legal expert. I don't know that we need a legal expert for this one, but we will get to her in a second. But I actually thought their lawyer Justin Nelson made a great point that I wanted you guys to be aware of. He said this was a conscious, knowing business decision to endorse and repeat and broadcast these lies in order to keep its viewership. And that's actually really true, because remember at the time, Trump is complaining about Fox News and he's saying, go to Newsmax, go to OAN, etc. So they're like, oh, no, yeah, Dominion, whatever, yeah, Hugo Chavez and whoever else, whatever else you need to make up, Smartmatic. And that was, of course, the North Koreans. No, wait, we like the North Koreans. It was someone else, right? Whatever lie they needed to make up, and it was directly for a business interest to keep their viewership, so they could keep their revenues going. So this is as good a case as I've seen. I think they might be in a lot of trouble. Hence, Trump is back on Fox News last night talking to Laura Ingraham, and you're gonna get a smell of lawsuit panic in the morning here or at night. So let's watch.
Have another fair election in this country, just like if you look at the last election, it was disgraceful. It was a third world election. It was a disgrace. Legislatures didn't approve much of what happened. Our Supreme Court should be ashamed of themselves. Under the Constitution, all of the things that they were doing had to be approved by legislatures and ors. And if you take a look at it, the Democrats went to the Republican legislatures. There were five of them. And they went to the Republican legislatures, could not get approval, so they did it anyway. That's in total violation of the Constitution. And what they did was absolutely disgraceful. And if you look at the numbers were vastly in favor of us in the presidential election. It was disgraceful that they were able to get away with it. The Supreme Court didn't have the courage to do what they had to do.
Speaking as a lawyer, we're not going to relitigate the past tonight, but I don't think the legal situation was in place, and I think that hurt everybody along the way. But I want to ask you about
the courts did not want to enforce it. You know that, Laura. You know exactly that. The Supreme Court didn't want to hear it. And
a lot of Republicans
on that Supreme Court
didn't want to
make a decision like they know they had to make. So they didn't have the courage to do what they had to do.
Well, moving forward.
Moving forward, please, whatever you do, stop talking and do not say the word Dominion. Whatever you do not say it, okay? Once he started going on and on, the Supreme Court, and it's a disgrace, and then the voting, she's like, Mr. President, let me just cut you off, and I don't want to relitigate that. I'm a lawyer, and trust me, we don't want to lose 1 point. Well, if you do the math on the two of them together, what would that be? $4.3 billion that Fox News is on the hook for, etc. But she also did a little snipe there, if you noticed. And like, if you watch the longer view of that clip, you'll see that she's saying that the lawyers were not prepared, and that's Trump's lawyers. That's why you saw Trump say, no, Supreme Court, it didn't have the courage. It's because, of course, he's a clown. He didn't prepare anything. Anyways, Adrienne, you're the legal expert here. How much trouble is Fox News in? Let's start there.
I definitely think Fox News is in quite a bit of trouble. It seems to be that they don't necessarily learn their lesson, as you observed, Cenk, earlier. The fact is that they decided to go ahead and run these things as though they were facts, despite the fact that there are no facts to support them. And so now they're going to have to pay the consequences. What really stood out to me about this lawsuit being filed was that they filed it in Delaware State Court. The thing is, with Fox News being everywhere, Dominion probably could have filed just about anywhere, but by virtue of the fact that they went under state law in Delaware, I was trying to figure out why that is exactly. And I looked up and found that Delaware state law is very favorable in terms of SLAPP. That's the Citizens Strategic Lawsuit Against Public Participation laws. They're not strong in Delaware, which means that Fox News won't have that extra ammunition in their pocket. And that may have made Delaware more favorable in why that they're litigating there. But Dominion definitely seems to be locked and loaded and ready to go to face off against Fox News and to take them to the bank.
You know what that's called? That's called a legal expert, everybody. Look it up, okay? I mean, we got Delaware law on this show. Who else has got that? By the way, Adrienne does overruled on Rebel headquarters. You should check that out. All right, Woz, thoughts?
I'm not a legal expert in any way, shape, or form. I'm just a gas bag who talks about basketball mostly. But I will say this. I missed hearing 45's voice. Like, I haven't heard him talk in so long, and he has such a unique cadence. It's so hilarious. It's funnier now, obviously, that he's not terrorizing us from the White House. But what's interesting about that clip is that these people are finally facing some type of consequences and repercussions for their actions, right? Between Fox News and conservative talk radio, they've basically deluded tens of millions of Americans for decades now, which is why we have such a harebrained, if you will, citizenry, right? And it can be frustrating on the left when you feel like these people never face any consequences for what they do. And I think this Dominion lawsuit is finally them sort of facing something for the lies and the sort of misleading of so many American people. And the Ingraham thing is kind of funny too, because she's echoing something Mitch McConnell basically said a week after the election. He's like, look, how you do this is you come up with something in the courts and do it legally. You steal the election legally. You don't do this harebrained stuff that Trump is doing. McConnell basically said that. He's like, look, I'd back you if you guys had some type of serious plan. What you're doing right now is a joke. So it's not that Republicans are against, subverting democracy. Is that they know how to do it. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and it's what we talked about earlier in the show. That's what George is doing now. They're like, knucklehead. You steal the election before the election, not after the election. You just got to do some homework, right? And that's the thing. I mean, it's so embarrassing because they went to court over 50 times, and they lost every single time. But it doesn't matter. Just Trump has to say anything. And honestly, like 40% of this country will instantly believe it because they've turned off their brains. It's a disgrace what happened. The Supreme Court ruled us standing. They really ruled on the case. But how about all the other courts? First of all, that's not true either. But they did rule on standing, but they were very dismissive. And every court underneath them, how about the 49, actually, it's about 59 other cases where you lost every single one of them. But they won't listen to reason. I've had Republicans, right wingers come on now on the conversation. You should check that out too. That's part of our programming. I'm not saying that if you get the premium level membership on YouTube, you'd get all of that programming anytime you want. But that is true. And I'm not saying you do it by hitting the join button below on YouTube, but that's also true. But anyways, but these guys, they're down to this. They're down to the Sidney Powell's guys. And so Sidney Powell, in responding to one of these lawsuits, same exact situation. Her lawyer wrote in the document that they handed into court, quote, no reasonable person would conclude that the statements were truly statements of fact. In other words, no, what we were obviously like, we were so obviously lying that you would have to be brain dead to believe us. That's amazing. They're admitting that in open court. They're like, our followers, Republican followers, are so maniacally stupid that you have to declare us innocent because we're talking to zombies. No reasonable person could possibly believe that what we were saying is true. She wrote that, her own lawyer wrote that and handed it to court. Anything like that, but well, actually, the Alex Jones case where he said the same thing. He told the court, "I'm a fool and I'm an obvious liar, and so you can't hold me responsible for it. Everyone should recognize that I'm a clown. And if 40% of the country doesn't realize that we're lying to them, that's their effing problem, not my problem." Is that a real legal argument, by the way? Our followers are so stupid and it's not our fault?
Yeah, to some extent. I think they've already done that once with maybe Tucker Carlson in Fox News in a court saying that. And so I think that that's where they're gonna try to run up against. But the thing is, it's not like your Comedy Central. And the courts are gonna have to, especially if you go to a jury being in that position to determine, hey, is this something that a reasonable person would consider a fact and expect you to be telling them the truth? It's like Fox wants it both ways and they should not be able to have it that way. And so hopefully the legal system steps in because we damn sure know the government's not gonna do anything.
Yeah, and look, most suits get settled, but I hope to God this one doesn't, that it goes to a jury. Because I want Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani and Tucker Carlson and Laura Ingraham and whoever else to get up on that stand, put their hand on the Bible, and then come and tell everybody, look, guys, we're obviously lying. No reasonable person would believe us. Our audience is obviously stupid and unreasonable. So we say it to entertain them, but you should not hold us legally responsible because we lie for a living. But that's what they're saying in their court documents. So say it on the stand.
What's so crazy too, Cenk, is whenever DC types, whenever they talk about Tucker Carlson specifically, they're like, Tucker's great, he's a good guy, he's just doing this, this cartoon character on Fox News. So it's like this inside joke that everybody understands, that essentially they treat their news program like WWE. It's all scripted, it's all, to tell a story, to be as dramatic as possible, to bring the audience in and give them the craziest version of events possible. And yeah, they treat it like it's a freaking TV show, when realistically they're supposed to be informing the American citizenry of the news of the day so that they can make informed decisions about things like elected officials, et cetera, et cetera. It's scary, it's dangerous, but like Adrienne said, hopefully the courts can step in and finally spank these fools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and guys, it's different if they take the news out of the Fox News name, right? If they said Fox Circus, okay, no problem. And truth in advertising, and that'll actually help you with your lawsuits. Then when you claim to be clowns in court, you'll say, look, circus is in our name, and you'll actually have a pretty good legal case. But if you're pretending to be Fox News, then you're in a lot of legal trouble because you're not doing news.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.